What's up everybody, Tech Chucker here, and today we're going to do another toy review of the Marvel Legends Red Skull Onslaught Taskmaster. Now this is one of the figures that was really hard to get when it first came out. Everybody has since talked about how great this figure is. Me personally, uh, I'm not feeling it. This isn't, this definitely is not the design that I prefer for Taskmaster. I prefer something a little more like this as opposed to the what we got. And then beyond that, I'm not super happy with what we did get in terms of sculpt and articulation, and more so in quality. And we'll get into that in just a moment. So I did manage to grab this one off of Amazon.com when they put it on sale for, I think it was like $14.99. So I'm pretty happy about that. But let's take a closer look and see what we get here. There's a few issues with the articulation on this figure. Mostly it's the joints are really loose on mine. There are some areas where the articulation is hindered. But moving into the head, his head is on a ball joint or a ball peg with a hinge joint, and he can look up in an okay amount. The hood gets in the way a little bit. He can look all the way down into his chest. His chin gets down there. And then he's got good side-to-side motion. I don't really care for that chin piece from the hood. You have to keep pushing it down, but luckily it's soft enough. And he's got pretty good tilt. So in terms of the head articulation, it's good. Shoulders, he's got a ball peg with a hinge, and he can move his arm almost all the way out. So that's pretty good. He's got full rotation of the arm. It's a little loose, as is the upper bicep swivel. You can see it's pretty loose. And the bicep swivel works, but that also is loose. The elbow joint, he's got double jointed elbows, but the top one doesn't seem to do anything. But luckily he can still get his arm almost entirely in half. So they could have just gone with the one. In the wrist, there is a peg joint and a hinge, and there's no real issues there that I can see. He can curl forward and backwards pretty well, and you can see that those joints are kind of loose. It's hard to keep the position. In the torso, he's got a hinge joint, which allows him, and I think this is the Bucky Cap upper torso, and he can move forward or crunch forward pretty well. It feels like there should be able to be another click, but it doesn't go any further. And then back arch is okay. I kind of feel that it could have been better. There is a waist swivel, which works really well. The belt hides that joint very nicely. He's got T-jointed ball joints in the hips, and he can spread his legs out about this much, which is about average for our Marvel Legends that we're getting. He can kick forward about this much, which is actually not too bad. I'm actually pretty happy with that. And then he can kick back a decent amount. Not as far back as I'd like, but it's, again, about what you'd expect from most Marvel Legends. There is an upper thigh cut, which works pretty well. Double jointed knees, which look really terrible in my opinion, and they're a little over 90 degrees, which is decent enough. I wish that they would have been a little bit better. But again, you can see that knee pad, it just looks terrible to me. And then there is no upper boot swivel, but there is good ankle motion going backwards. Going forwards is actually pretty decent, especially compared to a lot of the other Marvel Legends. And there is a ball joint in the ankle instead of the typical hinge that we just see. So he's got a lot of range of motion in that ankle. And I know a lot of people have been kind of talking about how great that is. I'm on the fence. I shouldn't say that it's terrible. I shouldn't say that it's even all that bad. It works well. So overall, you know, I guess I don't have a problem with the articulation. It's more the quality of the joints. They seem to be kind of loose, at least on mine. I don't know if everyone else is having that issue. Maybe I just got a cruddy one. Sculpt-wise, I like this figure and I also don't like this figure. Let's start with the head because I actually do like the head sculpt on this Taskmaster quite a bit. I do think Hasbro did a really good job getting the details sculpted in of this skeleton mask. Uh, you can see that, you know, there's really nice detail in the teeth and in the cheeks where those are sunken in. I'm not a big fan of the hood. It's good that they used a softer rubbery plastic, so I'm happy with that. But there's supposed to be a cape. I just can't get over that. The shoulders, I don't like the boxy look. It almost makes him look like he's a robot instead of a person wearing a costume. I can't stand these elbow pads. They just look, I don't know, they look kind of dumb to me. The hands I do like. I do like the way that they sculpted these hands. I like that the knuckles have a little bit of spiky sharpness to them. I like the holsters, though I don't like that the guns are just molded in. The belt is nice. No problems with the belts. The sculpt is nice there. The legs, I actually like the sculpt of the legs. I like the armored look. I already talked about how much I can't stand the look of the knee pads. I think that just looks really ugly. But overall, the actual legs are sculpted nicely. The feet, it looks a little funny just because it protrudes out a little bit further than I think it should with that ball. But in the end, I'm not gonna knock it for that particular look. So overall, the sculpt is nice. The biggest thing that it's missing is the cape, because the Taskmaster that I like wears a cape. And so I think that would have helped a little bit with the hood. Right now, I don't understand why he'd be wearing a hood like that without a cape that goes along with it. So in that respect, I think they really dropped the ball on this figure. I think paint is where Hasbro really let me down in terms of color scheme. I'm okay with the silver, but I think the blue is totally wrong. But let's take a look at the face first because I think they painted this well. It looks good. I do wish that it was a little bit different blue, a little bit lighter of a blue, but they painted it well. It's not really messy at all. They did it nice and clean. The eyes look good. There is no wash on the hood, and that would have helped. There's also no detail or shading or anything on the holsters as well. So in that respect, I wish they would have done a little bit better on the hood. The color scheme throughout, you know, the belt they did nice. It's again not the right colors. It's too dark of a blue. The pouches don't have any shading. There is some messy paintwork down on the legs, at least on mine. You can see here there's some bleed throughout the painted areas on the legs. So in that respect, the QC could have been a little bit better. You can see on the foot there's some issues with the paint. But overall, my main issues with the paint is actually the color scheme, the color choices that they made. There needs to be gold. There needs to be gold, and there isn't, and that just kind of disappoints me. And I already showed you the picture of the Taskmaster that I wanted, and we just didn't get that, and it's kind of disappointing. I don't recognize this figure as Taskmaster necessarily. So, you know, correct me if I'm wrong or disagree with me, that's okay. This one's just not doing it for me. Hasbro gave us 3 accessories with this Taskmaster figure, and this first one that I want to show you is the alternate head, which has a darker blue hood. The paintwork they did on it is pretty good. There's a little bit of messiness in the eyes, but other than that, the rest of the paintwork is pretty good. There's no shading on the hood, but it is pretty dark, so I don't think you're going to notice too much of an issue with that. My issue with this is because it doesn't come with a cape. It just doesn't, these heads don't look quite right on the body. The body looks too small, and Taskmaster to me is kind of a brooding, bigger guy with that cape at least. So if I can get this head on, you can take a look and see what it looks like. It doesn't look terrible, but again, for me, I want to see a cape with Taskmaster. So I'm not upset with the heads. I'm just upset that there's no cape. How many times can I say that? Taking a look at the shield that he comes with. I like this shield. I don't like the darker blue, but it's painted relatively nicely, although the edges are a little bit wavy. They're not a nice crisp edge. This particular shield uses the clip-on, so it clips onto his wrist, which isn't too bad. I'm okay with that. And then you can turn it so that it pegs into his back, which is nice. Taskmaster also comes with this translucent orange sword, which looks kind of like a lightsaber. And the handle is sculpted nice enough. There's nice detail on that. There's no paint on it. It's just black. And I'm kind of on the fence with this sword. My preference is that he would have a real sword, an actual metal sword. So I don't know where this translucent orange comes from. Somewhere in the comics, I'm sure he's using it, but it looks more like it should be Luke Skywalker's sword. So in that respect, I'm not super keen on this particular sword. He holds it relatively well, and it looks nice enough. And I'll just show you, you can peg this shield into his back real nicely. And so this works pretty well, and I'm happy with how that looks. And it does give him a little bit more of that bulky look that I prefer. But again, I'm going to just keep beating this dead horse. I want a cape for my Taskmaster. So I'm not overly impressed with the accessories, not entirely disappointed though. Overall, I like this figure. It's definitely not my favorite, but it's also not my least favorite in my collection. I don't think that it deserved the hype that everyone was giving it. Had they matched it up more with the comics that I like, then I think it definitely would have lived up to the hype. My issue was definitely not having that cape and some of the articulation being a little bit loose, which made it really difficult to do the stop motion, which was really short this time because it was just so difficult to get that figure to keep its position as I tried to record it. So overall, like I said, I'm happy, but it's definitely just kind of a mediocre figure to me. All right, folks, make sure you hit subscribe, like me on Facebook, and I will see you later.
Tetris Brain Blast.